Yo, what is up guys? It's your boy Hoopz here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be ranking every NBA team's draft. So, on Thursday, the NBA draft happened, and there were a ton of surprises, so I'm going to be reacting to them. But before you do anything, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and comment what topic I should talk about next. But anyways, let's get into the video. So first, we have the 76ers, and I'm going to give them a B plus. They drafted Jaden Springer at 28, which is a kind of questionable pick because they have a good point guard position. I mean, they could play him at the shooting guard, but he's more of a point guard in my opinion. And they drafted Charles Bassey at 53, which is an absolute steal. I had him going late first, early second, and to get him near the end of the draft was a really good steal. And they got Philippe Petrusev at 50, which I guess is decent as well. So I'm going to give the Sixers a B plus grade. Next we have the Thunder. I mean, I'm also gonna give them a B plus. I mean, besides Josh Giddey at 6, which was a really surprising pick, they did a really good draft. They have Trey Mann at 18, who I think is pretty underrated. They have Aaron Wiggins at 55, who is good. And they traded 16 to the Rockets for 2 future firsts. I'm not sure what protections are on that yet. But I mean, that trade alone makes them go up like from a B to a B plus. So I have the Thunder going at a B plus. Next we have the Hawks. I'm gonna give the Hawks an A. They drafted Jalen Johnson at 20, which I think was an absolute steal. I had him being going at 11 to the Hornets, so obviously he was a lottery pick potential, and I mean they got him at 20, so that's an absolute steal. And they got even more of a steal at Sharif Cooper at 48. I'm a Raptors fan, so I'm a little mad that we passed on him twice. We had 2 chances to pick Sharif Cooper, and we picked 2 point guards instead of him, so I'm really mad. But I mean, for the Hawks, that's really good. He's from Atlanta already, so that makes it even better. So basically, the Hawks just got one lottery pick at 20, and they got someone who's a top 20 player in the draft at 48. So yeah. Next we have the Magic. I'm gonna give them an A as well. They got Jalen Suggs at 5. I mean, that was a really good pick for them, but at the same time, they have like 3 point guards already, 3 young point guards. So, I mean, that's a little bit questionable, but at the same time, you're going for best player available since the Magic are rebuilding, so they don't really need to go for fit. And they also drafted Franz Wagner at 8, which, I mean, I was a little bit surprised. I thought they would go for like a Jalen Johnson, Keon Johnson, or someone like that. But I mean, that's a good pick too, so I'll give the Magic an A. Next, for the Wizards, they drafted Corey Kispert at 15, which, I mean, I didn't really like that. And they got Isaiah Todd at 31 through trades. I mean, Isaiah Todd at 31 is pretty good. I had him going a little bit lower, but I mean, he definitely could be a first round potential. But I mean, the Wizards, I'm going to give them a C. I really didn't like that Corey Kispert pick. I mean, the Wizards are in a really tricky spot right now. They have Bradley Beal, but the rest of the team is horrible. So who knows? Are they going to like tank? Are they going to trade Beal? Or are they going to try to make the playoffs? Who knows? But Corey Kispert, I mean, that's a really bad pick for either way. I mean, Corey Kispert, if you're trying to make the playoffs, that's cool. But I mean, you have like Garrison Matthews and players like that who will do the same thing. So yeah. And they also got Isaiah Todd, which I mean that's pretty good. That would go from a D to a C. So yeah. Next we have the Pistons, A plus. Do I need to say any more? They drafted Cade. That's pretty obvious. They drafted Luka Garza, which I think was a steal. He could be like a Nikola Vucevic type of player in my opinion. And they drafted Isaiah Livers at I forgot what pick, but Isaiah Livers in the second round too, which I think is an also good pick too. Next we have the Cavs. They only had one pick from what I remember, and it was Evan Mobley at 3. I'm gonna give them an A. There's nothing much to say about that. I think it's pretty obvious. Evan Mobley is a really good pick for them. Pacers, Chris Duarte at 13. I'm going to give them a B. Chris Duarte is a baller, but he's 24, so that's not the ideal draft age. He has less time to improve. But I mean, I guess it's obvious that the Pacers are in a win now mode, so that kind of makes sense. So I'm going to give the Pacers a B. Next, we have the Bucks. They got Sandro. Okay, I'm just gonna say Sandro because his last name is really hard to pronounce and it's really long. I'm gonna give them a C. I mean, I don't really know much about him, but what I know is that they traded the 31st overall pick, which I don't think was a good idea. There was a lot of good point guards available that you could have gotten because your backup point guard is Jeff Teague, who's probably not going to stay, so you really don't even have a backup point guard for next season unless you sign someone. But you could have had a Miles McBride, Sharif Cooper, Jared Butler, Ayo Dosunmu at 31, but you traded it. So, I mean, that alone just makes it bad for you. Next, we have the Toronto Raptors. I'm a Raptors fan. I'm going to give them a C. I mean, Scotty Barnes is a cool pick. I would have rather had Jalen Suggs, but it is what it is. They drafted Delano Banton at 46. What were you thinking? Charles Bassey, B.J. Boston, Sharif Cooper, all available, but you went for the biased pick and drafted the guy Delano Banton because he's from Toronto. Like, seriously. What is that? And then at 47, you drafted David Johnson, who's cool and all, but Sharif Cooper was still there. B.J. Boston was still there. Charles Bassey was still there. What are you guys doing? You guys completely screwed up the second round. So they're getting a C. David Johnson, he's pretty good, but if Sharif Cooper, who else? B.J. Boston, Charles Bassey are available, you better take one of those. But I mean, David Johnson, at the start of the season, I'm pretty sure he was like a top 15, 20 player in the draft, but he transferred to somewhere else, and I think his stats and stuff dropped. So I mean, that's a decent pick. If like Cooper and all those players weren't available, David Johnson would be cool, but they were available. So Raptors, I have no idea what you're doing. You're getting a C though, because I mean they're still decent players, but you know. Next we have the Denver Nuggets. They got Bones Highland at 26. I'm giving this an A. This might be a little surprising, but Bones Highland is one of the best point guards in this draft. I think he could definitely be a top 10 player from this draft. He's a deep range shooting point guard. I mean, they have Monte Morris, but I honestly, I'm going to move this to B plus because they have a lot of point guards. They have Jamal Murray. They have Monte Morris. They have Faco Campazzo. They might have what's his name again? Austin Rivers. He's more of a 2, but he could play the 1. So you have 4 players that could play the 1. So unless you're gonna have Bones Highland at the shooting guard, or Monte Morris as your shooting guard, or maybe even Jamal Murray plays some shooting guard, I mean the pick doesn't make any sense. But Bones Highland is still a really underrated player in my opinion. But yeah, I'll give them a B plus. Next, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh, by the way, I'm skipping the Mavericks because I'm pretty sure they didn't make any picks. So, yeah. So, the Grizzlies, they took Zaire Williams at 10, which is really surprising. I mean, Zaire Williams he might not even be a top 20 player. I think Zaire Williams is a top 20 player, but he might not have, he might have not gone in the top 20. So, I mean, trading up for 10 was a really weird thing. And they traded for the 30th pick, who ended up being Santi Aldama. What are you guys doing? I didn't even know this guy before. And you drafted him at 30? When Miles McBride is there, Sharif Cooper is there, Jared Butler is there. What are you guys doing? You need a point guard too, because Eric Bledsoe is not staying. You're interested in trading Tyus Jones, who's your backup point guard. So why not get a better point guard than Santi Aldama? Like, seriously, Miles McBride, Sharif Cooper, Jared Butler, Ayo Dosunmu, they were all available. What are you guys doing? I'm giving you a D. That is, the Memphis Grizzlies had one of the worst drafts, if not the worst draft, in my opinion. The Timberwolves, I'm pretty sure they didn't make any picks either. The Spurs, I'm giving them a D also. They drafted Joshua Primo at 12. I mean, Joshua Primo, I like him, but he's a late first-round pick. You could have traded the 12th overall pick for, like, the 26th overall pick, and you could have gotten, like, a bunch of young assets. You could have traded that pick for a later pick, and you could have gotten something good, too. You could have gotten, like, you could have traded 12 for 19 and 21 to the Knicks. You could have done that. But instead you just drafted Primo at 12, which is cool, and then you drafted Joe Wieskamp at 41, which is also cool. But I mean that Josh Primo pick as itself just makes it a D. Nothing else can make it better. You could have drafted like Keon Johnson at 60, and this still would have been a bad draft because you drafted Joshua Primo at 12 over Keon Johnson, over Jalen Johnson. Who else? Over Moses Moody, who I think would have fit well with them, but it is what it is. The Jazz. I'm going to give the Jazz an A. They traded for the 40th pick, which I think ended up being Jared Butler, and they don't really have a backup point guard, so I mean, that was really cool. The Jazz traded the 30th overall pick, but they still got Jared Butler, so with a later pick, so they could have. So either way, it's a W for them. Next we have the Clippers. I'm giving them an A plus. They traded for the 21st overall pick, which ended up being Keon Johnson, who's a top 10 player of this draft without a doubt. And then they traded for like one of the last picks in the second round, and they got BJ Boston, bro. Two really good players. Keon Johnson would be really good for the Clippers. I mean, he could literally do everything except shoot threes, but I mean, that's something you could easily fix because his release is looks pretty nice. And BJ Boston, he's sort of a project pick, but coming into this year, he was a top 10 player. So I mean, really good draft for the Clippers. Next you have the Suns. They didn't draft anyone, but they did make a trade. They traded 29 and Javon Carter for what? Landry Shamet. I'm giving that an F. Landry Shamet is not worth a first at all. Maybe in a different draft, but this draft is one of the deepest drafts we have ever seen. That trade was super bad for the Suns. Why would he even do that? Like, that's a terrible trade for the Suns. So I'm giving them an F. Next, we have the Portland Trailblazers. I'm not sure if they traded for a second round pick or they had it, but I'm giving them an A. They drafted Greg Brown with that pick, which I think was a pretty overlooked pick. I mean, Greg Brown, he's like BJ Boston. He was supposed to be one of the best players coming in this draft, but his stock fell a lot because he, like BJ Boston, wasn't really consistent. His shooting splits weren't really great, and honestly, he really struggled in college. But I think with like a player like Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, maybe Carmelo Anthony if he comes back, all those veteran players to mentor you, I mean, you could become really good. So I mean, that's a good that's a good pick for Portland. Next, the Kings drafted Davion Mitchell at 9 and Nemias Queta in the second round. I mean, I'm gonna give this a B. I mean, Davion Mitchell, the 9th pick, drafting Davion Mitchell, I thought was really I was really confused because you already have De'Aaron Fox, you already have Tyrese Halliburton, so that doesn't really make any sense. And then you drafted Nemias Queta in the second round, which I think was pretty cool. So I mean, Kings had an average draft, so I'm gonna give it that. Knicks, I'm giving them a D. They traded like all of their picks, and then they traded the 21st pick for the 25th pick and drafted Quentin Grimes, which it's not a bad pick, but like there's still better players. Like, you could have got a Sharif Cooper or something like that. So I mean, yeah, I guess. But Knicks, they traded like every single one of their picks, and they drafted some other players in the second round. They traded a lot of their second round picks. I mean, the Knicks had a really confusing draft. I'm gonna give them a D because I mean, why trade all these picks? So yeah. The Pelicans, I'm going to give them a B+. They drafted Trey Murphy at 17, which I think was a really good pick for them. A 3-and-D wing, that's basically all they need. They just need shooting around Zion that could defend, and he could do that. So, yeah. Next, we have the Hornets. I'm going to give them an A+ as well. They had James Bouknight at 11, which is a really good steal. They had JT Thor at 37. Like, seriously? How did he even fall to that? And they got Scotty Lewis at 56, which is a pretty cool pick as well. I'm going to give them an A+. James Bouknight, that's a steal. He'll fit well with the Hornets. JT Thor, I'm not sure how that fit will be, but I mean, just that he fell to 37, that pick won't be valuable, so might as well trade for it and just stack up on the talent. Uh, Rockets, I'm gonna give them an A. I mean, they got Usman Garuba at 23, Josh Christopher at 24, Jalen Green at 2. I mean, Jalen Green was expected, so I can't really say that's an A plus because we pretty much expected that. Usman Garuba, I had him in my mock draft going to the Rockets with either 23 or 24. I am going 24. And then Josh Christopher, I thought was a really surprising pick because, I mean, besides John Wall, who's your point guard, I thought they were going to go for like Sharif Cooper, maybe Jared Butler, maybe they reach and go for like an Ayo Dosunmu, but they went with Josh Christopher, which I thought was really confusing. But I mean, I guess that makes sense. The Heat didn't make any selections. The Bulls, I'm going to give them an A. They drafted Ayo Dosunmu in the second round. I mean, that's a steal, especially if he fell that low. I mean, the Bulls, their backup point guard is like Tomas Satoransky. I could imagine seeing him leave or get traded. So, I mean, Ayo Dosunmu, Ayo Dosunmu is like a win now player, in my opinion. So, I mean, the Bulls could definitely use that, especially if you got him with a steal at the second round. Uh, the Nets, I'm gonna give them an A as well. They traded for the 29th pick. They traded Landry Shamet for the 29th pick, so automatically that's a W. You drafted Kessler Edwards, Marcus Zagorowski, I think that's how you say it, and Raekwon Gray in the second round. I mean, those are all pretty cool picks. And then and then at 27, you drafted Cameron Thomas, and at 29, with the pick you traded for, you drafted Day'Ron Sharpe. I mean, those are all pretty good picks. I'm going to give them an A. The Warriors, I'm giving them an A as well. You drafted Jonathan Kuminga at 7 and Moses Moody at 14. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga, he's a boomer bust player. If he can be a boom, he'll be a top 3 player from this draft, but he has a high chance of being a bust than other players. So yeah, and then you drafted Moses Moody, who surprisingly fell to them. Uh, it seems like the Warriors and Moody were interested within each other to go to the Warriors. So I mean, yeah, that's cool for the Warriors. The Celtics, I'm gonna give them a B. They drafted Juhan Bergen or something like that. I mean, the Celtics don't have a point guard, and you drafted a shooting guard when Sharif Cooper was available. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense. Sharif Cooper is a first round talent, maybe even a top 20 player in this draft. And he was available, but you still didn't draft him, so that doesn't make sense. Then finally, the Lakers, I'm going to give them a D. They didn't really make any draft selections, but they traded their draft pick for Westbrook, and that fit is going to be terrible for them. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand the trade for them. They should have traded for Buddy Hield instead, in my opinion, because they need shooting, and they just got more ball dominant with Westbrook there, so that doesn't make sense. But I mean, Mavericks, Timberwolves, Heat, they didn't make any selections from what I remember. They probably got some two-way players, but that doesn't really matter. But anyways, that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Comment what you think about my list. Should I make any changes? Did I forget anyone from these teams? And yeah, so I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.